Colloquy today, we talked about Jane Eyre, the first 10 chapters of it, and just discussed her growing up, her experience with her family, moving different places, education, things like that with Jane Eyre.
The theme that I thought was most interesting, or one of the themes that I thought was most interesting in Jane Eyre, was the idea of freedom and how maybe Jane Eyre's definition or ideal definition of freedom has changed throughout the book. And so, like in the beginning, she just wanted freedom from her abuse and she wanted to seek escape through isolation and through imagination. But towards the end of chapter 10, her definition of freedom has kind of been a little bit limited in a way, because she realizes, or she has learned more about the world and how it works, and maybe she can't imagine being that free, so she sets up a different definition of freedom for herself, which maybe isn't the full definition of freedom. So that was interesting to track the kind of the progression of that idea.
And it's kind of sad, like, to think that, in a sense, like, her natural element is a feeling of abuse and unwantedness. And so I think, Jonathan, that was also a really good point that you brought up about that the reason for tranquility was gone, but not like her power to be. So I think that's just an interesting question to kind of remember throughout the rest of the reading.
I feel like this is also interesting because typically we always warn children, like, oh, stranger danger, and like, don't trust people you don't know. But on page 19, as in the bottom paragraph, it says, I felt an inexpressible relief, a soothing conviction of protection and security when I knew there was a stranger in the room and an individual not belonging to Gateshead. So she's had such a difficult childhood that she's like, oh, a stranger means that people won't treat me as badly when someone's present. So I think that's just such an interesting impact of not having people around her to love her properly.
Do you guys think it was, like, wrong of Helen to rely so much on her faith and to bring everything back to faith? Like, did that make her a little bit unrealistic in a sense? Because I could see from both sides. Like, I would read the parts that Helen would say, and I would think what a good mindset to have, and just to bring everything back to faith. But also at the same time, like, her humanness would definitely push me to be more like Jane and just be angry at everything that was kind of going on around her.
It's like the two ends of a spectrum, and maybe they're leaning a little bit too far in each end and trying to find the middle somewhere. We talked a lot about power, talked a lot about autonomy, talked a lot about nature and freedom, and just had a really good discussion.